Good afternoon, gamers. We are back again with another Mythic video. This time we are going to be covering Opulence. Opulence is definitely a pretty interesting fight overall. We're going to be covering talents, azerite, how to play the fight, some tips. This POV was provided to me by Nick. Obviously, I wasn't around during progression, so I don't have a ton of progression footage. I don't really want to use rekill stuff because it's kind of nuanced, and I would like this to be more for the progression player, looking at progression styles of what you should be looking to do. So I'm going to be using Nick's POV from this from a couple weeks back. We're going to be talking about like gem choices, how to be dealing with the translocation, that kind of thing. So let's just jump into it, guys. All right, so first thing to point out, Nick is actually on the left side. Obviously, this side is pretty better for Boomkin due to the being able to drop the volatile charges and not losing as much damage. Most of the time, whenever you're balancing the group, you're going to have a bunch of your melee be going on the right side with the Flames of Punishment, and you are going to be getting the volatile charges on the left side. Obviously, you're going to be translocating during the middle of the fight, so that's something to be watching out for. But whenever you're generally putting up the group assignments, if you are making the group assignments for this fight, that's what you should be looking out for. Obviously, you want Demon Hunters to be able to tag and make sure that they are able to have the buff on both adds. They can dash back and forth. As for azerite, triple streaking stars and one arcanic pulsar, pretty much a staple for the instance. Whatever else you got, I'm running triple streaking, triple arcanic pulsar because it's all I have. Treacherous Covenant's really good. Most of the other generic traits are also fine. Making sure that they're dodging these flame jets, a very important part of the encounter. The flame jets open up in like kind of like a zigzag pattern. So once the 3 that are currently open close, the other 2 open up, so you're able to kind of zipper your way through them and make sure that you always kind of know what's going to be going on. As for cooldowns on this fight, you obviously pop cooldowns on the pull, and depending on what gem you're getting, most of the time though, you're going to be popping cooldowns just pretty much on CD for this fight, especially early on during progression. But occasionally there will be times where you're only going to get 2 uses of Incarn, so that's going to be later on farm though. We do see Nick get his first translocation. And something to point out with the translocation is if you actually stay standing still for a few seconds, you do have some immunity. It's about 5 to 10 seconds of immunity if you don't move. That's very useful for the Flames of Punishment. However, not great for the volatile charge. The reason being for the volatile charge, it's not super sick because you do want the volatile charge dropped out of the group. So making sure that if you are getting translocated and you have the volatile charge on, you should communicate that to the rest of your raid in order to be able to drop the volatile charge in a more appropriate spot. Something that we did actually see them do there is they dropped the flames in melee and used a link in order to be able to run around and not get hit by the Flames of Punishment. The Flames of Punishment is the only real way that you can die in this phase, except for getting hit by like the frontal crush or something. So making sure that you're positioning appropriately around the Flames of Punishment, using Spirit Link early is pretty good on this fight. You do also see Nick getting translocated back and forth an awful lot. Now he's back with the volatile charge side. I actually really enjoyed this VOD in this point of view because you do see Nick how he deals with all of these translocates and how he kind of manages them. And he does a pretty good job overall. It's not great for his damage because moving back and forth is not going to be best for your damage, but in terms of how to do the fight, it's going to be pretty good. As for talents, we can kind of discuss the talents right now. Nature's Balance, Wild Charge, Restoration Affinity, Typhoon, Incarnation, Twin Moon or Stellar Flare, both are good, and then Fury of Elune. So I guess the only real thing that you can talk about in terms of discussion topics are Twin Moon versus Stellar Flare. So the reason between why you'd ever pick Stellar Flare for this fight is if you're actually getting the Ruby or the Topaz, Stellar Flare could be marginally better, especially since you're not going to be doing too much ad damage in general, and your priority for the ad damage is pretty low, so you just pounding the boss could be better. Fury of Elune. Obviously, Fury of Elune is better for the fight just in general because ads do spawn every 1 minute. So making sure that once you get onto Opulence, making sure that you have the Fury of Elune for every set of ads is very strong. Also important to note that Nick does, in fact, elect to not get hit by the frontal cone and instead stand in the flame jet for a couple ticks. Whenever you're trying to piece together what you should be dodging versus what you should be standing in, not getting hit by the Flames of Punishment is by far the top priority. You would rather stand in the flame jets or stand in the fire patches on the ground as opposed to getting hit by the Flames of Punishment. And we do see here the gem choice coming up. I have them labeled Topaz, Opal, Ruby, and Emerald, and we can kind of talk about them. So Emerald, we'll start off with that. It's good overall and probably the best for a big parse. The issue with it is it's inconsistent, especially if you get liquid gold or translocated onto the Flames of Punishment side. Basically, whenever you're standing still, Emerald gives you 1% damage per second you're standing still. So that's why it's best for the parse, but it might not be best for practicality purposes in terms of like how to actually play out the fight. Ruby, if you get Ruby as your damage, it's just going to straight up suck. Honestly, Nick, you see Nick here getting Ruby. You have to kind of alter your rotation a little bit, fill with some instant cast globals whenever you otherwise would not want to. Emerald's going to significantly gimp your damage, but you can still play the fight well while having Emerald. I was looking at a log earlier, and he had Ruby, and I kind of told him, man, there's not really too much you can do about your damage. You stayed alive, you kept the debuff up on the boss, you were playing the fight okay. Your damage is always going to suffer if you're taking Ruby, so do keep that in mind. Boomkin is not a good class for Ruby, though. Honestly, you should probably avoid taking it. You're probably one of the lesser classes to be taking it. And then we got Opal, the most consistent gem for damage. If you have the option to take a damage gem, generally you should be taking Opal. It's going to be giving you a significant amount of damage because it does give 1% damage per target hit. So you're going to be able to get a bunch of ad sets and be able to crank a pretty decent amount of damage. And it especially helps during progression because normally guilds, especially during prog, will lust the first set of ads to try to get themselves through it. And then they'll have their Opal buffs ramped up for the second set of ads. And the ads will just kind of fall over. And then Topaz for Moonkin is better than Ruby. While you're able to forfeit like standing in the raid, at least you don't have to like alter your rotation to keep up the Ruby. While being on the Flames of Punishment side, your Topaz is going to start super low just by proxy of being in melee, like you see on the screen right here, running around the Flames of Punishment. So the other people on the other side with the Volatile Sparks or the Volatile Chargers should be looking to be starting out the fight with the Topaz, with the Topaz if your guild is electing to use it. I know some guilds elect to not even use the Topaz. I personally think it's better for speed, and it is more consistent for killing the ads, so I think the Topaz is good. But you don't have to use the Topaz. You actually did see somebody drop the Volatile Spark in raid, and that's like one of those things that you need to be communicating, heavy defensives or something like that, making sure that everybody knows what's coming. So then as for cooldowns, you see Endkarn coming up in 25. I believe Nick actually elects to use Endkarn on the second set of ads, but we're going to definitely be seeing that. So Liquid Gold usage. Liquid Gold is something very interesting and a very easy way to make this fight as easy as possible. The walkways are still accessible during this part of the fight. Noting that means that you are able to actually just walk your Liquid Gold debuff out onto the walkway as far as possible, especially early on. And then once you walk it out onto the walkway early on, then you are able to just, whenever it grows big, it doesn't take up any in the room, and it doesn't matter. And you do actually see Nick getting his Endkarn up about 5 seconds into this ad set and electing to not use it. He's just going to save it for the next set of ads as he knows that's going to be the potentially dangerous set for his group. So that's pretty good. Overall, I think Opulence is a very interesting fight and enjoy it thoroughly. But it is pretty gimmicky, especially it's difficult to look at logs for this fight. The reason being for it being difficult to look at logs is that it's pretty cheesy in terms of what gem you're getting, and sometimes a lot of the stuff is out of your control, but you are able to play around it. You should be looking to hold your bark skin for whenever you get Liquid Gold, especially if you get an overlap with Liquid Gold and Wailing Greed and you're not stacked up in the middle of the group. That is a very good time to be looking to heal yourself, use your Engineering Belt Tinker, make sure that you Bark Skin, Swift Mend, anything else, making sure that you're just able to stay alive. Overall, this fight for Balance Druid it's pretty good. You can be pretty patty, especially if you're running Twin Moons and you're taking Opal or Emerald and just getting being able to just crank damage as much as possible. You do see a version of DE and Ixia electing to Bloodlust on the second set of Spirits of Gold. I don't think I personally believe that this is the best strategy, but this is the one that they elected to use, so we'll discuss it. But I think that Bloodlusting the first set of ads and then having your ramped up Opals be able to just kind of take care of the second set with the Topaz buff and everything else is pretty good. So that's definitely something to just kind of think about, especially if you're setting up how you're going to be doing the fight. But Aversion is doing quite well at this point in the fight. And basically, once you get past that second set of ads, the fight is pretty much over. Everybody's Opals ramped up high enough. Everybody's damage is out. You had Bloodlust running. And the fight is just flopping. You obviously see Opulence getting chunked really quickly here. The Whale of Greed is pretty spooky. Something also to note is that people do not actually stand in range of the group with the coin shower. You can bop it, immunity it. As a Moonkin, you're going to be looking and begging your paladin to have bop for you. But at the end of the day, soaking the coin shower is generally a bad idea. Maybe APT from Restoration Shaman or something like that. It's pretty good too. But overall, that's Opulence. Opulence is obviously a pretty interesting fight and pretty easy. And we're going to shoot it back over to here. So I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. If you'd like, check out the stuff in the description. Check out my stream, my Patreon, my Discord. Shoot me a DM on Discord if you have any questions or anything else. I'm going to be probably uploading a 20 Battle of Dazar'alor later on in the week, so be looking out for that. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace out, guys.